We are
living on spokes.
as like a midway, I don't know, different episode. We're gonna both share 3 of our most memorable experiences so far on the trip. And memorable being maybe not necessarily the best. I don't know. I took it as, honestly...
For memorable means when somebody asks you, explain me the trip in 3 things that happen. That could be anything. What's this trip about?
Yeah. And obviously 3 things each is not enough.
And we are just...
But we just wanted to make this short and share a few things.
And at the end you have to choose, so when you choose, you decide somehow what's most memorable, which is good.
Yeah. And we decided to do this individually, so I don't know what Larisa's got, and she doesn't know what mine is. Maybe we have the same experiences, perhaps. I would think we have something the same. But we don't know yet. So, you're number 3?
My number 3 is gonna be my accident.
That's on my list, too.
I think that, I don't know if you know, but and I don't know how good is the image, but I smashed my front head of the face on the floor in Morocco when we have been riding for a month, approx. So we had to stop for 2 weeks. Fortunately, we had planned to fly to Guatemala, so we went back home in this case is Barcelona, and everything was good, and it was almost nothing.
Yeah.
More than stitches.
I was gonna share that later, but yeah, I was behind Larisa when it happened. So it was, if you say most memorable, that's my most memorable experience, because it's seared into my head. You flying over the handlebars, and it was one of those slow motion things, and coming up to her with your head smashed open, and blood literally pouring like a fountain down your face, and yeah, it's crazy. And we got lucky that there were some people there, and Larisa was conscious, and everything was superficial scar, like cuts, but really pretty bad. But again.
Yeah, bad cuts, but nothing else. I mean, I just landed with my head, and I didn't have a concussion, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, so nothing happened more than to open my front head, which I think that it was worse for the people who was not me, because I was conscious, I wasn't dizzy, I saw the blood but didn't scare me. It was more, I don't know, what you were thinking, maybe since you get off your bike and coming to me, if I was alive or what happened to me or whatever.
Yeah.
But nothing happened.
In the end, everything was fine, yeah, and it was a crazy experience, and you got a memory on your face.
Yeah, forever. It was pretty funny because they washed my face more or less in Morocco, so they sewed me all the stitches, more or less 20 stitches in my face. And then the day after, or 2 days after, we flew back to Barcelona. For 2 weeks, the nurses were taking care of my face, and then we flew to Guatemala. And I don't know if you can see, but right here in the middle of my front head, something was going on weird. So we had to go to a doctor in Guatemala too, and they had to open. And we discovered that they left there 4 stones from Morocco. Very nice. Very nice. But again, everything easy, good, just some cream, some of these paper stitches, so no more nurses, and since then, everything is going very good.
All right, moving on. My third most memorable thing. That was actually my first. So we're not going to have a number one for me.
Okay.
I talked about the number one already. So what I had as my third memorable, and again, listen, this is one of many, but when in Western Sahara, when your bike broke,
oh my gosh,
and we had to hitchhike, and so that whole day, I mean, I guess part of this was because it was the first time we took a car. We had to, really. So it was more like trying to get over the fact that, okay, we're not cycling this entire thing, which is fine. Because I had, in my head, maybe egotistically, I wanted to cycle everything. But it's not what we're trying to do here, it doesn't matter. And it was really cool. The first couple of cars, there's a few cars that went by and asked for money. We're like stranded in the middle of the Sahara Desert, essentially. One guy asked for the equivalent of like $100 US, which was absurd. So we're like, get the fuck out of here. And then
I have to say that it was 4 in the morning, in the afternoon. Yeah. So we weren't worried at all about.
No, we were pretty fine. And there was a car at least every 10 or 15 minutes. A car was going by, even though it's a Sahara Desert in Western Sahara. And then we only waited maybe 30 minutes, and a big 18-wheeler, 2 guys, they take shifts essentially, or one was getting dropped off at home, or I don't know exactly what they were doing, but yeah, filled with Fanta. So they opened up the back, we put our bikes on top of the cans of Fanta, and then we climbed into this 18-wheeler, and we're like cruising down Western Sahara in this, and they ride in the middle of the road. I mean, these are pretty thin roads, so when nobody else is on the road, they just cruise right down the middle, which is pretty funny too. So I don't know. It was just, and then the whole day we got late at night into the border town, and that was interesting. And then the next day we were in Mauritania. It would have taken us like 4 more days.
Yeah.
And it took us, a day and a half. Not even. We were in Mauritania the following day. So hitchhiking in Western Sahara was awesome.
That's true. Okay, so moving on, my second one, it's the 5, 6, or 7 days that we were going through the Sahara Desert in Mauritania. I cannot pick one of the days, even though I have in my mind that almost every day was very windy. You have to imagine the typical image with the dunes of sand and the wind blowing here and there. We were all, full of sand. And I remember that at some point, it was very difficult to know when you will find the next city, because the maps were not the cities, or was very complicated. But that for sure there's something in 100 kilometers, every 80, 100. And we found a city that it was like a mushroom in the middle, just pop up. And it was a kind of city. And asking here and there, and we finally ended up in a restaurant bar. We asked for a room, and they said, yeah, no problem. And we discovered that the room was the room where everybody takes their food and drinks and so on.
Like a dining room.
Yeah, like a dining room. So they kick off everybody after 9.
Yeah, they told us I think we could get in there at 8.
Yeah.
And then we're sitting outside waiting, and there's people eating, and so.
And watching TV.
Watching TV. Yeah. So we ended up getting in. I think after 9, we were like, all right, we're ready to go to bed, and he had to kick out the last guy. And other guys kept coming in, wanting to sit in there, and I don't know. We were both shy a little bit and felt bad, so we didn't say anything. And then the owner would come in and be like, "Get out of here." So we had to like block the door with cushions.
Because the door couldn't. I mean, you.
The door wouldn't really fully close.
Yeah.
It would just kind of the hinge wasn't, or the lock wasn't tight or something. So the door would kind of like you close it and then it would just kind of slowly open. So we put some cushions behind it and then. Yeah, and the next day we had to wait till like 9:30.
Oh yeah, because
nobody was around.
Yeah.
Everybody was up drinking or something. I don't know. They don't drink in Mauritania.
No, they don't drink.
They were up late doing something.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, that was fun. The whole thing was good.
But the crazy thing, you know, it was that we went there. They had shower. I mean, you have to imagine that we spent days and days without shower. So we had the shower. That was very awesome. Cold water, doesn't matter, was heaven for us. And they serve us a little piece of cake with coffee with milk for me and coffee for Matt. Or coffee with milk for you too.
Probably.
But you know, I mean, it was a very windy day. Even though I enjoyed it so much.
The last 30 minutes was all like dust cloud and
Yeah.
it's crazy windy and yeah.
And then
Yeah,
you
that's
find this thing randomly after asking to a guy in a building who walked with us to this place.
Yeah. Nice. This is my last one because I had your accident and then the hitchhike. So this is really my number 2. Basically just the last day to get to Dakar in Senegal. Again, this is mainly because reaching Dakar was our first like milestone essentially. There was, you know, saying you're going from Barcelona to Dakar, Senegal, it's like 5,000 kilometers, 3,000 miles. It just doesn't seem possible going through the Sahara Desert. You got to just do it one day at a time, really, and eventually, just like now we're in, at the current moment, we're in Tanzania, and we still have 4,000 kilometers to get to Cape Town, and it doesn't really seem real, but every day we get a little bit closer. So that reaching Senegal, or Dakar, the capital, Dakar, and then like that day, we only had like 60 kilometers, I think, to go, and the first 20 was like crazy traffic, but downhill, so we were going fast, and then just like 30 kilometers from the city, the way we were wanted to go was a highway, like a typical highway you'd have in Spain or United States, where they don't allow any cars on it, and there was like any bikes on it, and it was like a toll, so there's no way we weren't gonna like sneak on this thing. So we had to figure out another way, and it ended up being like 5 hours or more than that, because we're pushing. I mean, we're trying to follow the maps around the roundabout way to get there, and we ended up on dirt roads that were really sand. So we had to push our bikes on the sand, and we had gone so far on these dirt roads essentially that before it turned to sand, that we couldn't really turn around.
In fact, I consider that thing.
Maybe we could have turned around,
and
but
Matt
it just wasn't to me an option to turn around, because then we would have been back not knowing where to go. So we pushed, and finally we got to a main road, but then we still had a paved road, not really main. We had 20 kilometers more to get to our hostel we had booked, and that was through like suburbs, like city basically. And then you get a flat tire, and meanwhile sometimes the road is covered in sand. There's a lot of construction, so sometimes the road turned to dirt in the city, and it was like shitty dirt, or we were riding on the road and all of a sudden it's blocked, and it's like, all right, we had to find another way. And then it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon when we thought we'd get there at like noon.
I mean, we were super close.
On maps, the hostel, it was a guest house. It wasn't where it said it was on maps. So then the next thing was trying to figure out where this place is, and it was crazy. Like we went to another place, another neighborhood where I thought it was, and we wasn't there. And then everybody said it was further down the road, and it wasn't even in this area either. Even though people were like, "Oh, it's just down there," and we'd ask somebody else, "Oh, it's a little bit further," and it's nowhere, you know. And finally, we were riding around, and now it's like 6 o'clock. The sun's setting in like 30 minutes.
And it's pretty funny because Matt is explaining all these, you know, and it's taking like 2 minutes. But I don't know how many people we ask about where is this direction, where and everybody looks to know, and none of these places were the place where the hostel was.
They weren't even really close. Like we weren't really
No.
that. I mean, we were kind of close essentially. We were in the at least in the right ballpark, but it was like a few kilometers away. Because what ended up happening was we got lucky. We went to a bank because people were telling us go to the bank and ask them. And for whatever reason, and there was a guy outside the bank that we got.
Well, I mean, you have to think that the only languages that we speak is English and Spanish. Senegalese French. So I try with my very, very poor French to understand and to explain to people where we want to go. So, sorry, continue. We ended up in the
Well, we
bank.
met a guy that called. We had the number to the place, but we didn't have any Senegal like phone chip to make a phone call.
Which is very weird because we bought a chip
In
every country
yeah.
except Senegal.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know exactly why.
We didn't have a phone chip. Well, we were only there for like a week. Besides the capital, we were there for 10 days. So I don't know. I think we both thought it wasn't necessary. But the guy called them, figured out the directions. At first, he was like, "Okay, you're gonna have to," and then he stopped explaining to us immediately and was like, "Just follow me," which was cool. Which is still crazy though, because we're on like a pretty basically a highway, but this highway you're allowed to be on with the bikes. You know, and we followed this guy.
There's also cows.
Yeah, we followed this.
On the highway.
We followed this guy, and
crazy traffic.
And then like the last thing that happened was he's talking to the guy on the phone saying, "Oh, we're booked,"
Oh, yeah.
and I'm like, "No, you're not, because we booked. You're booked with us," is what I was trying to. But like he gave us a little last fright, making us think, and then we're waiting at a bank, like another bank. He's like, "Just wait here," the guy in the car that we followed. And the owner will come get you guys. And now we're standing there for like 5-10 minutes. It's like, oh fuck, we don't have any number. Hopefully, but the guy that it ended up being awesome. The people were super nice.
Yeah.
It was these 3 brothers. It's like basically a house that they have on Booking.com. and
one of the brothers lives in France, so
yeah,
he kind of know.
Getting into the hotel, getting into the guest house, and just being like arriving, and yeah. Anyways, that's the memorable. Let's move on to your last one.
And my last one is gonna be again in the Sahara Desert, and it's about camping. We camped a lot in the Sahara Desert. We slept many nights in our tent, and I don't know, I remember just one of the days we found like a kind of hole. And
Couple days we found a hole.
Couple days?
We had to find holes because it was pretty windy. So we were looking for like shelter from the wind.
Okay, so that day we found that hole. So we put the tent inside the hole. And I don't know, I just remember, the sunset was awesome. And the morning after, Matt started playing with his own shadows.
Sunrise.
Yeah, in the sunrise. And I don't know how to explain. There's nothing special, just you pitch your tent and get ready and do your rice with vegetables as every night. Nothing special. And that makes everything very special. Because we were in the Sahara Desert watching all Atlantic Ocean.
So your 3 and my 3 were all before we got to Ethiopia.
Yeah.
We got more experiences to have, but we haven't filmed any of. I had a couple films from before Ethiopia, but this whole video series is Ethiopia to Cape Town. So yeah, all 6 of these were from, which I wasn't ready to film yet. Wasn't feeling it yet. So.
It's a little bit crazy. How many things happen in the Sahara Desert?
Yeah, I could have talked a lot about that too. I was trying to spread it, but essentially mine are all from, well, no, it's not the last one, but Morocco. All right. Anything else?
Nothing else.
More experiences to make.